I'm Stargate Pioneer from the Starling Tribune, a podcast member of the GonnaGeek network, just like the one you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual. Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready, because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to Crimson Comet, a fan podcast about the TV show dedicated to the Scarlet Speedster himself, CW's The Flash. Welcome to episode 9 of Crimson Comet. This week we'll be discussing the Flash Arrow crossover event, Flash vs. Arrow, and the Brave and the Bold. I'm your host, Haley.
And I'm Chris.
And I'm Jay.
If you'd like to get in contact with us here at the Crimson Comet Podcast, you can visit our website, crimsoncometpodcast.com. You can find us on Twitter at Crimson Podcast and on Facebook, Crimson Comet Podcast. You can also leave us a voicemail by calling 423-FLASH-53. That's 423-352-7453. And if you'd like to get into a more in-depth discussion, you can visit our forums at forums.gonnageek.com, or you can find them on the Tapatalk app by searching for GonnaGeek, all one word.
Tapatalk. I love that word.
I know. We have a little Tapatalk song every week. Tappa, tappa, tappa. And we had a few people call our voicemail line this week.
Yeah.
But before we get to those voicemails, our sorely missed co-host, Will, who's off partying with famous Hollywood peoples.
Because that's what you do.
Yep. Sent in his feedback for the episode.
Hey guys, sorry I couldn't be there this week. I know, of all weeks to take off, this is such a great episode. I can't believe I'm missing out. But I do have a few notes. By the way, when did Gallifrey Public Radio take over Crimson Comet? I mean, you got Haley here, you got Jay. What? Kier couldn't make it? Anyway, I got some notes for tonight's show if you guys want to talk about it real quick. I just got some things. Nitpicky stuff off the very top. Did you guys notice that the building development said Polymer Tech? There was a street sign that it was Queen Street. And I guess apparently there's only one bank in all of Central City. Everyone just keeps ending up robbing from the same bank. At some point, wouldn't you just close the doors to the bank or move or have something else, have another location? And apparently, Captain Singh is gay. News to me. They just seem to gloss right over that one. And what we've been waiting for a while now is that Detective Pretty Boy's douchiness is starting to come out. Cisco has really kicked it this episode. I mean, he even quoted Yoda. How great is that? And is it me, or is Oliver a little bit of a dick in this episode? I mean, he's kind of a douche. I gotta tell you, I really love this episode. One of the things that I loved about it was the snarkiness between our two stars, Barry and Oliver. Or was it the Flash and Arrow? I get confused a lot. I'm old, I drink. What was that other thing? I have a real problem in how they captured Prism. I mean, one moment it worked really well on Barry, and then the next thing you know, we got Prism inside the cell block. I mean, we missed out on that entire exchange and how they caught up to him and put him away. What the hell was that all about? So apparently, by taking Prism's victims to a disco would probably cure them of his ailment. That's all they have to do is turn all of Central City into a big rave. I really love the dynamics between Oliver and Barry. It really sets up the older brother, little brother dynamics. Oh, and the other thing, how does Caitlin look at Oliver and not think to herself, God, he really reminds me of somebody? You think? Well, that's all I got, so talk away. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. Until next time, talk to you next week.
I have to say that I think that the way that they did the whole Prism capture did work, because at that point, that was a side note. The main reason that we wanted to see anyone affected is so that we could get the comic book, heroes fighting each other thing.
Exactly.
Right. The episode's called Flash vs. Arrow, not Flash and Arrow versus Prism.
Yeah. So, I mean, once you had that happen, are you really going to follow these two fighting with, okay, let's go stop this bad guy that all we have to do is make sure not to look him in the eye? No, I think that the way they did it was right.
Me too. I mean, really, what's he going to do against both of them when they're teamed up together?
Yeah.
Just really doesn't stand a chance.
Cry.
What color are his tears?
Rainbow.
Yeah, because he's Roy G. Biv.
I just now got that.
Yeah, it took me like my second watching to be like, oh, Roy G. Bivolo. Got it. Yep.
Who is actually a character in the comics known as the Rainbow Raider.
Is he really Rainbow Raider?
And then in the New 52, they started calling him Chroma because that's a little more badass.
They decided to butch him up a little bit.
Yeah. And they changed his powers a little bit in the TV show because I guess in the comics he can manipulate the visual spectrum that allows him to sometimes blind people as well as influence their emotions.
Interesting.
So you might see his powers evolve if he comes back into play.
He probably will, because he's one of 2 villains they haven't killed so far.
So far.
No, it's okay. Wells will let him out next week to fight against somebody else, and they'll both wind up dying.
Right.
So,
or there'll be like a crack in the wall between their cells, and they'll kill each other.
It's all part of the plan.
Or Cisco will forget to go down and feed him.
I just want to see one of them down there at one point, and like some hamster pellets fall out of the wall.
This is why Cisco's not allowed to have a puppy. All right. Do you guys want to hear from Adam?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Hey guys, this is Adam. I'm not even really sure where to start on this episode, just with all the stuff that happened. I mean, Barry did need to learn a lot of the lessons that Ollie was trying to get across to him, like with the planning and actually scouting things out. So I'm glad he found out about that stuff before facing someone with similar powers. I did like the little cameo at the end from Sandra, the mother of Ollie's child, which I had completely forgotten that she had gone to Central City at the end of those flashbacks last season. I was a little disappointed they didn't actually show the guys taking, Prism, as they called him on the show, down, but, I mean, they had a lot of other stuff to pack into the episode, so it's kind of understandable. I do wish they had him instill emotions other than rage, like maybe instill fear in the cops or whatever. That might have let them do a bit more overt of a tie-in with the whole Green Lantern emotional spectrum thing if his eyes had flashed yellow then or something like that. Wow. Like I said, not even really sure where to start. I'm sure I'll think of about 5 things I meant to talk to you guys about as soon as I hang up. Oh, just thought of one. So do you think Wells already knew that Ollie was Arrow before he even asked Felicity and it was just a test? Or when she didn't tell him, he went over and asked Gideon? I think that'll do it. Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay, so as far as Wells knowing if Oliver was the Flash...
You mean the Arrow?
Well, whatever. In an alternate timeline, he's the Flash. That's why he didn't know who the Arrow was.
Okay. I was wondering how that worked.
Yep, that's how that works. That's why you had to ask.
I wasn't sure if it's because Wells is super smart or if it's because he's from the future, presumably.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about the fact that he had Gideon and everything like that. I was like, oh, yeah, well, he's a freaking genius, so I'm sure, it doesn't take much to figure it out.
Well, I mean, I can't believe more people didn't figure it out. The Arrow shows up at the same time that Oliver Queen does.
Right. Yeah. And they know Felicity works with the Arrow, and Felicity's in town, too, with Oliver Queen.
Yeah, not exactly a, Fort Knox of information here.
It's a secret known to a select few.
Everyone knows who he is now.
I know. You could feel like a whole hockey league with the number of people that know who the Arrow is.
Exactly. So, Adam brought up that whole point about the emotional spectrum and things like that. Have you guys read any of the Green Lantern books around Blackest Night and things like that?
I haven't.
Well, Jeff Johns was running... He did all the story behind Blackest Night, Brightest Day, things like that. He's also one of the producers on The Flash. So you do notice when Barry gets all ragey and angry, his eyes are red. Well, Red Lantern's power is rage. So it ties into that. And then the lights they flash at Barry to reprogram him, the 4 colors are purple, blue, green, and pink, which also map to different lanterns. So you have compassion, hope, will, and love as the powers that dispel his rage, which is how they dispelled Black Lantern energy in the Blackest Night storylines. So it's kind of a nice little tie-in that comic fans might pick up on, but otherwise people are like, just flashing light colors, who cares?
It's just a rave.
It sounds like something Jeff Johns might be like, hey, we've already kind of established this. Why don't you guys use it in the TV show?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, honestly. But that is actually fits pretty well.
Yeah, I liked it. I was like, I didn't even think about it until I saw a post on Twitter about it, and I was like, son of a bitch. That makes sense.
All right. And then lastly, we heard from this guy, Star Pie. What a silly name. You guys want to listen to his voicemail?
Let's do it.
It's just going to be wrong anyway.
No is an acceptable answer, but...
We got to show some love to our Starling Tribune co-host.
Greetings, Crimson podcast hosts. This is Stargate Pioneer calling. Yep, it's Star Pie. So I was listening to your last podcast. You guys were talking about crazy man beard hair and shaving it all off. And let me tell you, when Stephen Amell on Arrow as Oliver Queen got off the island and he shaved part of his beard off, I'll tell you the reason why. And that is because as a man who has recently grown a beard, in the weeks about 2 through 3, it is the most itchy, annoying thing ever. I mean, like, ever. So if you just want to cut it back to about that length, it's probably okay in my book after having gone through it myself. So, other than that, awesome episode this week of The Flash. Love the crossover. Love Felicity. Drooling over Felicity shirtless. That was amazing. Oh, and there was the rest of the episode too. And seeing the little Ollie's son's mom, that was great. Because I do another podcast on the GonnaGeek Network, other than the Starling Tribune on Arrow, called Voices of Defiance. She is on the television show Defiance on Sci-Fi, and I love her as an actress. She is amazing. So, love the talent that they've been able to assemble, and looking forward to tonight's episode of Arrow. I'll catch you guys later. Great job on the podcast. Keep it up. Talk to you later. Bye.
Wow, so he even manages to plug podcast on voicemail.
I noticed that. That's impressive.
So what are your guys' thoughts on shaving a beard down to stubble instead of going clean shaven?
I just keep the beard.
I'm just going to sit over here by myself until we start talking about Felicity shirtless.
Okay, let's talk about Felicity shirtless. That's where we're going to start our discussion this week.
For gratuitous TNA, it was hilarious, though.
Yes, it absolutely was.
It served no purpose, but it was hilarious.
You know, I think she's the first person to be shirtless in this series since the pilot with Barry.
That's actually kind of funny.
Yeah, you got to remember, we're used to watching Arrow, which is Stephen Amell's always shirtless.
I know. It's not fair. You guys get shirtless Stephen Amell every week, and I have had no shirtless dudes.
Shirtless Stephen
almost 2
Amell,
months.
shirtless Roy, shirtless Diggle, and just,
You got to call him Daddy Diggle. It's more fun.
You used to get shirtless Sarah, but wah.
Oh, too
poor
soon.
Sarah. I'm sad.
Although I did like that they brought that up, even though it was on the Flash episode, so people that hadn't watched Arrow yet would have been kind of like, well, what is this all about? But it was nice that, hey, we're still looking into this, like, full on hardcore.
Well, I think it was a smart thing to do because then they brought it up again on Arrow. And if you noticed, minor news point, Arrow had its highest ratings in forever because of this crossover event. So you had a lot of people that were just watching Flash that wanted to see Flash on Arrow. So maybe some of them will stick around.
Hopefully.
That would be good. I kind of feel like this whole Canary thing is setting up the next crossover in the back half of the season.
I think it's setting up the mid-season finale based off what the preview looked like for Arrow.
Oh, I haven't seen any previews.
Yeah.
But I know what's coming in the mid-season finale of The Flash, and I'm pretty excited about it.
You're going to get a shirtless Oliver fight next week where he
That's
fights
shocking.
people with no shirt on.
Completely shocked.
His opponent is also shirtless, and I think he said in an interview that's a 4-minute fight with them not wearing shirts.
I have no problems with this at all.
Haley might actually watch Arrow.
I always watch Arrow. I just don't usually turn the sound on.
In fact, there's a picture that I sent you guys in the Skype chat from Stephen Amell's memes.
Yeah, I saw it.
That
I
is
was
from
distracted for a minute.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that.
For those that are wondering what it is, Stephen Amell, he's huge on social media. He does this whole thing where he asks people to do memes for him, and this is a clip of him from the mid-season finale of Arrow rather, with no shirt on, holding 2 lightsabers. It's glorious.
I don't need anything else from the internet today. I'm good.
Haley has finished the internet.
All done. Well, like Felicity said in the Arrow episode, well, Caitlin asked, what's that for? And she said, distracting me from work. And I was like, yeah,
Right.
Me too.
Yeah, that was great.
Well, there was a hilarious moment on that where she's like, when does he do that? She's like, I don't know, pretty much every Wednesday.
Yeah, I caught that too.
And I was like, oh, Salmon Ladder every Wednesday. It's when Arrow's on and he always does it.
Every TV show does that.
Yeah, it's kind of like what they did on Flash, was it last week or the week before, where it's like, oh, another metahuman running around. Must be Tuesday in Central City.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I commented on it then that every show does that.
Yeah.
Well, this one had a couple little nice effects like that. Jumping into Arrow real quick, Detective Lance has a moment where he's like, hey, it's been a while, because it pretty much has, because he hasn't been on screen in forever.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I don't know that he's had a scene with Oliver all season. Like, he's had a few scenes with the Arrow, but yeah. But he doesn't know that Oliver is the Arrow.
Or does he?
He's the only person in Central City.
He's willfully ignorant.
I think you might have more of a Jim Gordon situation with him, where he might have some clues, but he just doesn't want to admit it.
Yep.
Because it's much easier to not acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so do we want to talk about the major plot hole leading into this crossover?
Which was?
Well, Central City has higher concentrations of iron oxide than any other place. Who knows what iron oxide is?
Isn't it rust?
It is rust.
Okay, I thought so. I heard that and I was like, I'm pretty sure that just means that it's rust. So apparently Central City is just a very rusty area. Even though the Arrow Cave is in a rundown steel mill.
Don't call it that again.
They just contaminated the Boomerang while it was getting taken down to the Arrow Cave, and nobody noticed.
Felicity dropped it on the floor, and she's like, "Oh wait, how can I cover this up? Hey, we should go see Barry."
We've seen the way they handle their evidence. Here, everyone, just hold it for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Why even put it in an evidence bag?
I did notice that though. As soon as Barry reached in, I'm like, "Oh, wait, you're wearing gloves. Never mind. Okay." Of course, I don't know where those gloves have been.
They've been beating up Fart Man and stuff. No, I guess that was a different suit because that one got blowed up.
Yeah, that's true.
So this one's pretty pristine. Okay, so then they get the Boomerang back to the Flash Cave.
The Flash Cave.
And Cisco accidentally Cisco's it.
Which was actually pretty funny.
That was hilarious. That's my bad. That's on me.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny to watch everyone scream and run in chaos. And
yeah.
Well, mostly Caitlin.
Yes.
Yeah, only Caitlin, I think.
Who was using her super acting powers.
Oh, Jesus.
I found her incredibly annoying in this episode. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
The last couple episodes, really.
The only two things that I really got out of her in this episode was one, when she says to Felicity, it's so nice to have another girl to talk to here. Look at that. For some reason, that just kind of humanized her to me. I was like, okay, I understand that. And then two, when she told Barry to butt out of Iris's relationship.
Yeah, that was solid advice.
Yes, very much so.
I also enjoyed the fact that Barry kind of called her on the fact that she's trying to treat him like her fiance.
Yeah, Ronnie.
Yep.
Yeah, he didn't do it politely because of all the ragey stuff.
Yeah.
But it kind of need to be done, and you kind of can emphasize, I can't talk. God. Empathize. God. Sorry, guys. With her, because everyone dies around her now.
Do you guys think that they're trying to play up a potential romance between Caitlin and Barry?
The internet wants you to hope for that because they want this to be the new Felicity, for lack of a better term, but I just don't see it happening.
See, I don't think they have any chemistry, but there's a few scenes that it seems to me like the writers are trying to steer it in that direction.
I think they might be testing it to see how people respond more than anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
They caught lightning in a bottle with the whole Oliver and Felicity thing that they never expected to happen because she was only supposed to be on there for 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And then she was like, oh, I'm just going to be awesome in every scene. And, oh, hey, you mean I get to stay on the show?
Yeah. And arguably become one of the most popular characters on the show.
Yeah.
Right. Really, she's my favorite character on the show. They could just have the Felicity show and Oliver in the background doing the salmon ladder and it would be fine.
Nah, my favorite's Diggle, I think. And he got some great moments in this Flash episode.
He was great in this episode.
I loved it when Barry runs up and Diggle just kind of his jaw drops. He's fast.
Master wordsmith there.
Is that not freaking you out?
I got into an argument with Wing about this too, and he was like, well, he's just Alfred again, which, arguably that's basically his role in the show. But it fit. He wasn't part of the cast for this show. He wasn't part of the main crew for this show. He was just there as part of Oliver's retinue. And so for him to just have those moments of levity was absolutely perfect. And especially if you know Diggle and you can appreciate those kind of responses from him for the hilarity that they actually are.
How fast do you think he goes to the bathroom after eating something?
Is he always that fast?
He's heard of the brown streak.
See, even Diggle wants to know about the poop.
I know. Yeah, you guys thought we weren't going to talk about poop because the other co-hosts were gone? Nope.
Inquiring minds must know.
We were handcrafted to bring the poop this week.
Howdy-ho!
And I love Oliver's response to that too, this is you watching my back. And Diggle's just completely non-phased. He just keeps going with the questions.
He's got questions. He needs them answered. So because of this episode, because of the crossover, we kind of get to see how the two different teams operate very differently. And we see it, you want to help us take down our metahuman? I'm not calling him that. We can talk about you giving your enemies silly code names later.
But see, I like the way that they did bring that back up in Arrow the next night because, these two shows have very different tones to them. Your light comic book happy show is Flash, and then your dark, gritty, Batman-esque show is Arrow.
Frank Miller.
Yeah, that's Arrow. So, it makes sense for them to give code names to the villains and stuff on Flash. And then they bring it over to Arrow, and it's like, look, this is why I have a problem with that, is because it's, we have actual villains here.
Right. And I mentioned last week the body count is about the same between the first season of each of these shows. It's just in Arrow, Oliver was the one killing all of his villains. Yeah. And in The Flash, they're just being conveniently killed. Like, the cops are shooting them, or they do something that gets themselves killed, or they commit suicide, or get killed by a different villain.
I forgot to look to the right when crossing the trains.
Exactly. Oops. And, Barry's just lucked out at this point that he hasn't had somebody that he didn't have any other way to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that's something we're going to see maybe in the back half of the season where he has to put somebody down.
He's going to have to run into that situation where things go wrong and they can't figure it out. This kind of problems that Oliver's had. Like, if you look at the whole Deathstroke thing, Ollie gets his ass handed to him repeatedly. Barry really hasn't had that problem. He gets setbacks, but he's never really thoroughly thrashed.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that's the kind of tone that they want for the show, though, because that's, here we have, the first 2 seasons of Arrow were dedicated to setting him up to become a hero.
He's still not quite there yet, I would argue, too.
Well,
we can get to that later.
Yeah, but, with Barry, it's like he's supposed to be the hero right out of the gate. So do you want to take the step back and have him struggle with the whether or not he should actually kill people?
Well, if you've read the comics before, he actually does kill Reverse Flash at one point. After Reverse Flash kills a lot of people, he puts him down.
See, and that's what I want to see. Not where he's just, killing all of the villains just willy-nilly or anything like that. But in a specific situation, he doesn't have any other choice, and he has to do it. And then he struggles with the consequences of that for a while.
It's very Man of Steel-esque, and I have my issues with that movie, but the whole thing of Superman putting down Zod at the end, it's the same. It's a very similar situation you get with the Flash having to put down Reverse Flash.
Yep.
And they can explain it all away because of time travel, so it didn't really stick.
But you still have those emotions right there at the front, yeah.
Right.
Right. And, probably the biggest problem I had with Man of Steel is that he killed somebody in his first movie. If, in the third movie or something, he'd killed a bad guy, I think it would have worked better.
He killed a lot of people we just didn't see.
Yeah. I have a lot of problems with that movie besides that, but...
Yeah, I do too. And Wing and I will continue to disagree on that movie as well.
Wing. So French.
Oui, oui.
Ho, ho, ho.
PP.
Okay, so Joe and Wells are teaming up to tell Barry that he shouldn't hang out with the Arrow.
Yeah, so these two agree on something. I know. That's not good.
Yeah, but see, here's my biggest complaint with this episode is how quick they change their mind and like, oh, go work with the Arrow. And I'm like, what? You just said not 10 minutes ago, he's bad. Stay away from him. Don't let yourself be brought down to his level. And they're like, oh, we need the Arrow. And I'm like, what the hell?
Right, well, how else are they supposed to stop the Flash? They took away Cisco's ice gun.
Okay, good point. But then at the end, they're like, we're really accepting of you. We might not agree with your methods, but we accept you. And I'm like, you just crapped all over him.
I can see them having a problem with him because he's killed people in the past and stuff, but then they blame him for those terrorist attacks, which he kind of prevented.
Well, not prevented, but resolved.
Like, half prevented one and dealt with the consequences of the other.
Part of the problem you have here is you're talking about 2 completely different cities, the way crime functions. Like, this is much cleaner, nicer city. You go into Starling, and Starling right now is basically like Gotham was when Batman gets on the scene in the Nolan films. It's terrible. Crime lords are everywhere. Everything's all messed up.
Sun doesn't ever shine.
Right.
Yeah, not at all.
It really doesn't. The Arrow doesn't go out in daylight very often.
Well, because then you could clearly tell that it's Oliver Queen.
No, he's got a fancy mask.
Yeah, that doesn't cover up his distinctive chin with the obvious mole.
Don't use logic on me, all right? It's unacceptable.
Okay, so speaking of logic, why didn't Barry just super speed pick up the sunglasses when they fell off?
It was in the script.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I forgot to read the script.
No, I don't know.
No, but that's basically it. It's like, oh, well, this could have been resolved 100 different ways, but none of them would have made for dramatic TV, so we can't do those. But, I don't know. That's one of those things with shows like this, you have to be willing to suspend disbelief.
Right, but it's fun to just poke holes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's why we're doing a podcast.
And, speaking of poking holes, it kind of was odd to me that it took so long for Barry to be affected by the raginess. Because if you look at the way his metabolism works and everything, he gets hungry really fast. He wears off on alcohol really fast. His system processes it. So why wouldn't this just process quickly versus delay? I
wonder if that's what it was, is it was processing quickly so it wasn't affecting him. Like he wasn't reaching whatever concentration of brain juice he needed to be affected.
And that's what Caitlin was trying to say at one point too. She was like, it's his system was fighting it. Basically, like his brain was regenerating quick enough that it wasn't taking hold fully like it did with everyone else.
I guess that could be.
Because of science, that's why.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to complain. I'm just trying to figure it out. It didn't make sense to me, but I can kind of see it now, I guess.
Because it wouldn't have worked as well if he just turned bad right away.
It was in the script.
Yep, it didn't give him time to recruit Oliver Queen.
Although I will say it was kind of interesting to see an evil Barry this episode and to have everyone's faith in him shaken that doesn't actually know Barry's under the mask.
Yeah, especially since it's like, well, if you've ever seen him on Glee, he was a tremendous douche.
Oh, yeah, such a dick.
That's what I've heard.
And you got to see aspects of that this week because he was just complete dick at some points.
Like all the points.
Like I know Oliver did come off like a dick, but at one point, he told Felicity, he was like, he doesn't want my help. He might want, he might think he does, but he doesn't understand what my help means.
Yeah, his help means, shooting him in the back with a couple of arrows.
Or shooting a thug in the shoulder and getting information out of him.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later, though.
Because it happens again. Okay, so we think Caitlin gives pretty decent relationship advice, which is to butt out. Oliver, not somebody you should be taking relationship advice from.
Right. This goes back to that dynamic we've talked about in the Starling Tribune a lot. Is he's still, and he even brings up, I think, in Arrow, he's still struggling to find the balance between being Oliver Queen and being the Arrow. And it's easiest to push people away to a certain extent as the Arrow.
Okay, here, specifically talking about Oliver's relationship, he doesn't want to be with Felicity because he doesn't want to put her in danger. But she's on all of his missions. How is she protected by not dating him?
Because we can't have them actually hook up because that takes all the tension out of it.
Well, there is that, but
what if Ross and Rachel had never gone on a break?
Yeah, he is bad at relationship advice, though. They need to go to Diggle for advice. He's got good relationship advice.
And then we meet another one of Oliver's exes, his baby mama, whose name I don't know.
I can't remember her name either.
I don't think they ever mentioned it on the show. Like, she was credited or something, but it was never mentioned in the show.
It was nice for that to come into play, and it's another Easter egg they've dropped for something coming in the future. Do I think they're going to bring Connor in immediately? Oh, hell no.
No, but the fact that he has a son out there is going to start playing into things somehow.
I bet the league knows.
Right, they didn't bring this up just to drop it.
No, and that was the question. When they first mentioned it, it's like, okay, that could be just a little Easter egg for people that have read the comics. Like, oh, hey, they're referencing the fact that he has a son. And they never had to bring it up again. Now that they've brought him back, yeah, absolutely, you have to do it now. Okay,
and I'm not an expert. Did they say how long before he ended up on the island this girl was pregnant with his kid?
They didn't really give us much of an indication. Probably a year or two before, I would think, based off of how the flashbacks were structured, but it was never explicitly said.
Right, so the kid might be 10 by now?
He was on the island for 5 years. He's been back 2 years. Yeah, I guess it's
I think
possible.
About 3 years at this point.
Well, each season of Arrow is a year.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's...
So 5, 2, 2. It's 9 years. No. Wow. Brain fart. 11, yeah, it's possible. I can do math.
Math is hard.
It really is.
Kind of is.
All right, and then we get to the end of the Flash episode, and we see Firestorm.
Yeah. Did that guy kind of look like Stephen Amell for a minute?
Yeah, funny that.
It's funny that.
Yeah.
Now I forget, are they cousins?
Yeah,
they're
cousins. And they have the exact same face.
They have very similar faces. Yes, they do. It was nice to see him in there. We knew from casting rumors and stuff like that they were building up towards Firestorm. So I'm really curious to see where they go with it.
Right. And they'd mentioned in a previous episode something about like a mysterious fire guy.
Yeah.
Right.
So they've slowly been building towards this. I wonder if they're going to have him reintroduced to the group before the mid-season finale or if they're going to save that.
It might be after the mid-season finale.
I think so.
There's a lot of, based off the preview for that next week's episode, I don't see how you fit him in there.
Right. Especially with, I haven't seen the preview, but I know what the episode's called, and based on that, I know some of the big stuff that's going to happen, and I wonder if they're just going to save this for the back half of the season to drive that story.
Yeah, it's possible. I think that's the way to go on it.
Probably. So then we get to the second half of the crossover event with the Arrow episode.
Before we move on to that,
okay,
you want to run through some of the Easter eggs there were in the Flash episode that we didn't bring up?
Yeah.
Okay, so they bring back Gold City Bank, and if you remember from the pilot episode, that's the bank that Clyde Martin robbed.
Yeah.
You got to go with the Cisco plan and just start keeping it all on your mattress.
Yep.
Exactly. So, and Gold City Bank is on the corner of Cunningham and Sampier Roads. And if you didn't know, Brian Cunningham is the current editor of the Green Arrow series.
Okay.
And
Nice.
Daniel Sampier is the penciler.
Nice.
So it was a nice little shout out there. We already talked about the Rainbow Raider and the Roy G. Biv.
Mhm.
Here's the interesting thing. They dropped, it wasn't necessarily a bombshell, but they kind of casually mentioned the fact that Captain Singh is gay. And he talks about his
Right.
health-conscious boyfriend. Well, in the comics, he was at one point involved with a character by the name of the Pied Piper, who was originally a foe of the Flash and then eventually an ally. And they've already said Pied Piper is going to appear in a later episode of Flash this season. So they're setting up Pied Piper already.
So everybody in the show is going to be like a superhero or supervillain, pretty
It
much.
sure sounds that way.
That's kind of been the way that they've been going, though.
Yeah, I think so. And I had to Google real quick. IMDb lists Ollie's baby mama's name as Sandra.
Yeah.
I think Adam might have said that in his voicemail.
Yeah, he did.
think
I
he
just
did.
couldn't remember what it was.
We remember things.
I remember some stuff. So that's what I had in the way of Easter eggs for this episode that we didn't touch on already.
Okay.
Drop some knowledge on you folks.
You should, because we're ignorant.
I'm not ignorant. I'm just
He's
old.
ignorant.
I drink. Oh, wait, no, that's not me. Dang it.
Playing the role of Rum Daddy this week.
Hey, somebody's got to do it.
Right. That means Chris is in charge of the puns.
Oh, crap. I can't do puns. This is a
I guess we
problem.
won't be banned in China this week.
So you're saying if puns were deli meats, yours would be worst?
Aha.
Oh, I quit. Bye, guys.
Bye. All right, now let's talk about Arrow now that he's gone.
Damn it, I quit too soon. I
That's okay. Felicity wasn't shirtless in this episode.
No, she wasn't.
don't think anyone was shirtless in this episode.
No, it was really disappointing. So we start off with Arrow versus Argus,
Yeah.
which ends in nobody winning.
And nobody doing anything, actually.
know.
That was
Just some
Yeah.
trash talk.
It's a Mexican standoff, guys.
that just seems like, somebody should have done something there. I don't know.
Whatever. These guys don't have the pull to take a shot at the Arrow.
Yeah.
That's because they know they'd lose. If you go and look at his track record dealing with SWAT teams and stuff like that, they don't last long against Ollie.
Right.
I do like how the guy was like, check your math again. There's 4 of us.
Like, that's going to help.
That means you'll die in half the time.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if they have standing orders from Waller or something like that to not interfere in the Arrow's activities.
Probably, because she might need to use them again at some point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, we know she's been using him in all the flashbacks. And we know that she knows who he is, not necessarily all of Argus. So there's got to be something there so that she can use him again later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is Diggle's wife, whose name I can't remember, is she second in command at Argus?
Lila appears to be in
She's-
charge of things right now.
Yeah, she's pretty high up. I don't think that they've ever given her an actual rank, but
I don't think they have either. They infer that she's very high ranking in the organization this week and much higher than she appeared to be in the Suicide Squad episode last year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because, she made the call to scrub the Suicide Squad while Waller was unavailable. And then she was kind of running the show tonight.
yeah, I think that she is going to be our tie into
Liaison.
Argus. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. I know words.
It's not going to end well, though, because Waller is going to manipulate that, too.
Oh yeah.
Right. I think they're going to end up divorced again. That's what I
hope.
think is going to happen. It's going to be sad.
I
Oh.
like Daddy Diggle.
I do too.
Well, he can still be Daddy Diggle. He just can't be, her.
Hubby Diggle.
Yeah.
No, I see. I think you got to keep him there to be the one that's successful, not to try and ground Oliver and show him that it's possible to be the hero and to have the
To
family.
rub it
and
in
things
his
like
face
that.
every time he fails.
I don't know if it's to rub it in his face, but go back a couple episodes when he and Roy go there to be with a family,
Yeah.
basically, to have dinner with Lila and Diggle and baby Sarah. I
Mhm.
think that Diggle is his look to see that if you really want, you can eventually figure
can
out
have
how
all
to
of
do things
this.
right.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to play in when he finds out about his son, too.
Right. I mean, and Diggle might be his brother, for lack of better terms, but he's almost like a surrogate father to Oliver a lot of time, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of a moral compass.
Oh, wait,
Little
he's definitely the
Jiminy
moral
Cricket.
compass.
So he's almost like Alfred.
Oh, God.
Alfred is the best part of Gotham, so
I still haven't seen any of it.
it's getting better.
I'm going to watch them on my Christmas break. I've got all 10 of them on the DVR.
I'm sorry, Sean Pertwee won Halloween this year. That's all I've got to say about that, because that was just fantastic.
Yeah.
Did you hear what he did, Chris?
Didn't he dress up as his dad?
No, I have no idea.
Yeah, so his father, it was John Pertwee, who played the third Doctor in Doctor Who, and he looks exactly like him. I mean, spitting image. And for Halloween, he dressed up as his dad, as the Doctor.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Funny story. For GPR, they had me watch Pertwee episode last week, and that was the first time I'd seen him as the Doctor, and I kept thinking, yeah, this is totally Alfred's dad. Whereas you're probably the other way. Every time you watch Gotham, you're like, yeah, that's totally the Doctor's son.
No, most of the time I'm like, holy crap, that's totally John Pertwee. That's no, it's almost spot on. That's it. That's him. All right, we're off topic.
Yes, we are. Okay. So when Superman was doing the salmon ladder, Felicity was like, I have a type. And then we see her other former love interest doing the salmon ladder.
Barry.
And we see Cisco trying to do it, and he's clearly not Felicity's type.
Everyone does the salmon ladder in front of Felicity now. It's like your rite of passage to be on the show.
You want to get into the Arrow Caves? This is your ticket.
So does that mean Sarah was Felicity's type?
You might want to mention it at the wing and see where he goes down this path.
I thought they played up a little bit of a flirtation between them when Sarah was teaching Felicity how to spar in that one episode.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Felicity did have a type like that, then yes, I think Sarah would be it.
All right.
And if not, you do not ruin my headcanon, damn it.
Okay. Headcanon. There was like a 3-way date that they didn't show.
Hashtag headcanon.
Hashtag it's all connected.
Oh, God. Hashtag my brain hurts.
Don't cross the streams. I'm sorry, Starpie.
So how long was Ollie not torturing that guy in the flashback?
Who knows? I don't think they...
It didn't seem like it was that long.
Right. How hard would he have had to torture him to get the information in that short of a time period?
Yeah, I don't know, because it did seem really quick. Like, okay, you might have gotten information from him, but it wouldn't have been in time to do anything.
Yeah. I don't know if they were trying to show that it happened fast and he needed to act fast, or if it was just a bad job showing the passage of time and his inability to do something.
I think it was more just not showing how much time had passed, because I don't think Waller would give him something that's super time sensitive when he's never done it before.
Right.
Or maybe who knows? She's kind of a conniving bitch, so she might have done it so that it would make him more effective.
I don't know why she would use Ollie, though, for this particular situation. I would assume she has better resources who could have done something.
This is a way for her to manipulate him into the tool that she wants him to be for her. It's mind games.
Yeah, I mean, I could fully see her saying, you know what, we have a high-profile target in one of these buildings. We're going to go ahead and let the bombs off, but I'm going to teach him a lesson in the meantime. So, I can fully see her wanting the bombs to actually explode.
And who's to say there weren't other people being interrogated at the same time, and this was just a low-level person she threw his way to try and see what would happen?
Yeah.
So all of her operatives are ineffective?
Potentially. Or who's to say she's even telling the truth and what happened there? Could have just been a setup.
Yeah, she set off the
planted the bombs. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would not put it past her. She is ice cold.
Or how do we even know that anyone died? I mean, she told him that. But doesn't make
we saw people coming out on stretchers.
Oh, yeah,
it looked like half the city blew up, so I'm betting at least one person probably bought it.
Good point.
There are people in the world who deal only in extremes, and it would be naive to think that anything less than extreme measures will stop them.
It was nice to see Oliver and Lila agree on that, too, at one point. Like, oh, you've both been Argus brainwashed. Well,
yeah, Waller gave them both the same speech.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did like how they tied in the title of the episode without saying it, though.
I did like that. And Brave and the Bold, it was a nice little comic Easter egg, because the Brave and the Bold comics is generally when Batman would team up with someone else.
Yeah.
Hence the Batman Brave and the Bold cartoon we had, too.
Mm-hmm. My son was all excited because Batman's going to be in Green Lantern or Green Arrow this week. And no, he's not. I understand where you're getting that from, but no.
That is not the case.
Yeah, and then I had to have a discussion with him about the politics behind shows and things like that.
You pulled back the curtain.
Yeah, I had to. It was time.
It was time to have the talk with him.
Yeah.
So continuing on the thread of the torture thread and things like that, we got that really cool scene but halfway through where Ollie is basically torturing a guy to get information out of him, and Barry does not agree one bit with it.
Yeah.
This is when you start to see their disagreement at the beginning. I ended up having a really interesting conversation with my girlfriend we stopped for like 20 minutes to talk about this afterwards, how she was like, he shouldn't just dismiss Barry like that. I mean, he's already said Barry's the guy, the hero, the guy that everyone can look to, and he shouldn't just blow him off like that. I was like, well, number one, he's in his city. Yeah. So it's his rules. And I said, I think number two, and you're probably not really seeing it expressed very well, he might not admit it, but he's a little jealous of Barry. Because Barry, A, can be this symbol, B, has powers, things like that. And I said, you've got to think Barry eventually, and I said, these writers are going to get us. At the end, we're going to see some kind of growth of Oliver to realize that torture might not be the way to do these things like that. And it's going to be Barry that teaches him this lesson.
Right.
Mhm.
She goes, well, Green Arrow, as a hero, he shouldn't do that. I said, well,
He's not a hero yet.
I said, wait until he's Green Arrow. He's Arrow. He's halfway in his transition to becoming this great hero. He hasn't figured it out yet. He's still closed off from everything, still has this mindset of do damage to figure things out.
Right. Probably when he hooks up with Felicity is when he's going to finish the transition.
It could be, or it just could be him finally growing enough to become the symbol for Starling and eventually be given the title of Green Arrow.
True.
I don't know if that'll actually happen, but let's go with the spiritual title of Green Arrow, so it's more in line with the comic stuff. I think as the character grows, he'll start to lose some of these darker edges.
Yeah. I felt like there was kind of a theme of this crossover. When we were on The Flash, we saw Arrow, Oliver, teaching Flash things that he needed to know and kind of making him a little harder, which he probably needed to be. And then when we went to Arrow, when we went to Starling City, we saw Barry teaching Oliver how to soften up, how to knock off some of those edges, which he obviously needs to do.
And Barry even brought up the stuff that Oliver taught him to go. He's like, you have time. You can scout a scene and things like that. So Barry's like, I'm scouting scenes. I'm looking ahead. And I was, as Ollie explained that to him in the last episode, I'm like, he doesn't have a point. This guy is faster than anything. Why is he not doing recon and stuff and figuring out what's going on?
And he totally missed that one guy.
Yeah.
He knew he was there.
Right.
He knew he was there.
I saved one for you.
Was it just me, or did it look like Barry was wearing a different, at least like cowl in Arrow? Like it almost seemed like the lightning bolts on the head, or the lightning shapes anyway, were more pronounced.
It did actually, but maybe it's just an
it could just have been different lighting or something too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, but I was wondering if it was that or if somebody else had picked up on it or not. But
I wasn't paying that close of attention to the costumes.
It was cool to see those guys together in both cities, though. The fanboy me was like, yes! I hope they do this next season.
Oh, they're going to.
And I love at the end too when they actually say, okay, we're going to figure out who would win here, because that they want to know. Like they had that question has to be
just
going through their
gnawing
head.
away at both of them.
Going back to Flash, I love how when they were actually fighting, and Cisco and Diggle are arguing about it, and Felicity's like, "Please tell me you're not having this conversation right now."
It's funny because it's the exact same argument everyone has when they're like, "Who would win, Batman or Superman?"
Mm-hmm.
It was exactly that argument.
Yeah, it really was. It was a lot of fun just actually seeing that play out. And I think they did it really well to the point where it's like, yes, we know it's gratuitous. We know that, it's cliche, but we're going to make it entertaining so that you're not going to be paying attention to that.
Okay. So in the car ride, we've got Diggle and Roy and Cisco, which that's just a fantastic trio to put together.
I want to see like a buddy comedy with those three.
I want to see like 3 Men and a Baby with those guys.
Oh God, that would be hilarious.
But Cisco's talking about how the world's always been crazy, and maybe we were given metahumans powers to help deal with all this craziness. Diggle, by God? No, by a dark matter wave released from a failed particle accelerator reaction. Oh, thank you, Cisco. Thank you.
Yeah, that was pretty spot on too.
I feel like Cisco was great in this two-parter. Like, he was just on the whole time, except when he started to sound kind of stoned.
Maybe he was stoned.
That's possible. He does have the hair for it.
So
doesn't he though?
So Cisco was great in Arrow, and Diggle was great in Flash.
Right. I think we need a spin-off series with just those two.
It'd be the new Odd Couple.
God, that would be horrifying.
And then Felicity could guest on that one too. She'd just be on all 3 shows every week.
She just needs to be on like all the shows.
Right.
Ever.
And Lobster's brain would melt.
So would SP's.
Right.
Yeah.
SP would just start another podcast though.
Felicity cast.
Yep.
I think he's already got that one in the works.
So Thea just had like 2 cameo appearances in this episode.
Yeah, that's okay. We haven't had John Barrowman for like 2 episodes in a row now, so.
I know, but when he comes back again, he's going to be awesome.
And evil. He's probably coming back next week.
I hope so. I love John Barrowman so much.
Oh, yeah.
In everything he does.
Well, you have to. He's amazing.
Right. Have you seen him? Okay, and then we get Screw You, Captain Boomerang.
What did he call him first?
Kaboom Boomerang. And I'm like, come on, Cisco, you can do Kaboomerang.
Yeah, that's terrible.
We are not calling him that.
But I did also love Lila's reaction when Flash comes into the Arrow Cave.
Yeah.
She's like, was that
Is that the Flash?
And then Caitlin at the same time, secret identity.
Dude, she already knows. No, she doesn't.
No, she doesn't. You didn't tell her?
I keep secrets for a living, dude.
Yeah.
And then the repeated joke, they're not married.
Yeah.
Which you knew as soon as you heard it the first time. You're like, oh, they're totally getting married.
Yeah, you knew it was coming. Although
Diggle.
I do have to say, when Lila got hit with the boomerang, I was concerned.
I did think for a second they might kill her.
Yeah, I really thought that was a good possibility. And then when she was on the same table as Sarah, I was like, oh, they're not going to do that shit. They can't do that shit. And they didn't do it.
I didn't think she was going to die, but I thought that she might be a little more hurt. And it might be a coma type thing for a while to give you that sense of drama.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just as happy they didn't go that route, though.
Right.
Yeah.
They're probably not going to kill two fairly main characters in the same half of a season.
And can you imagine the outcry if they killed 2 female leads in that show?
Okay, funny you should mention that. So all the guys go out to deal with the bad guy, and all the women stay home in the Arrow Cave. And I just kept thinking, I know everyone's not the biggest Laurel fan, but it's time for her to head out in the field with the team.
Oh, don't worry. I'm sure it's coming soon.
I hope so. Because that would actually make Laurel kind of interesting.
They better do it smart. And from the interviews I've read, I think they're going to, is that just because she has a costume, it doesn't mean she's going to be good for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
She needs to go out and get her ass handed to her again to realize, oh, this isn't a game. This isn't easy.
But I feel like when she was just fighting that whatever dude outside of wherever he was, she should have been able to handle herself a little bit better in that particular fight than she
cocky,
did.
though.
That's the argument that I had.
Because, we've seen her lay out guys before.
I don't disagree with you, but I think the reason she didn't is because she was cocky and she's going like, oh, I can take care of this. And the guy was like, pfft.
And you know what I think we're going to see is, she's going to deal with a few street level thugs and handle them really well, get real cocky. And then when she goes up against, whatever, all of her supervillains or something, she's going to get her ass handed to her again.
Slade Wilson's going to hand her ass if he shows up again.
Or whatever Summer Glau's character's name is.
Yes.
Yep.
Because I still believe she's alive.
Right.
The Ravager.
She's comic book dead right now, just like Plastique.
Yeah. Never saw the body after she was killed.
No. You just saw her like, oh, crap, that hurts. I'm going to lay down for a minute.
She just needed a nap.
She was never given the cure, so who's to say Mirakuru can't solve a broken neck?
Yeah, she got better.
Brought Slade back from the dead.
It's just a flesh wound.
It's just a flesh wound.
Do you guys have any more notes for this week's episodes?
I got some Easter eggs.
All right, let's hear them.
So when Barry and Ollie go to see Captain Lance, Lance calls Barry Bart Allen. Nice little aside here is that Bart Allen is Barry's grandson in the comics from the 25th century. He's a superhero named Impulse who eventually becomes Kid Flash, and he's temporarily the Flash at one point. So it was a nice drop there.
Nice.
That one was fun. Let's see. What's some of the other stuff I saw here? Oh, in the Arrow episode, they referenced something on the corner of Infantino and Adams Streets.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's some more creator Easter eggs. The creator of Barry Allen, his co-creator rather, is Carmine Infantino. And the Green Lantern, Green Arrow artist that most everyone's familiar with, especially from his time in Batman also, Neil Adams.
Neil Adams. I've seen a little bit of his work at Marvel. He did some awesome stuff on the X-Men right before it got canceled.
Yeah, wait for his Batman stuff. It's fantastic.
Looking forward to it.
This, I think, was just a nice little shout out there. There's a sign or some graffiti that you see in Starling City for Satan's Outlaws, which is a gang in Grand Theft Auto. He referenced, I love the fact that in the Flash episode, they're talking about his prison underground. And Oliver's like, well, I have my own island with a prison. And they talk about Captain Boomerang having a cellmate now. And I'm like, oh, he's with Slade Wilson now.
Yeah, there's no possible way this could end badly.
No, of course not.
And I went back and I looked at some screen captures. If you look at the new costume that Cisco gave Ollie at the end, maybe it's lighting or something like that, but it looks like it's a little more green, a brighter green.
I thought it might have looked a little brighter, but I couldn't tell if that was just that the cave is a little brighter than the alleys we usually see in them.
See, I'm not sure. That's all I really had Easter egg wise. Well, this is kind of half a joke, but at the end, basically, you can put all of Rocky III's lines in the last 2 minutes of the movie. Because it's pretty much just the Rocky 3 fight between Apollo and Rocky when you have the Flash v Arrow at the end.
I haven't seen Rocky.
Okay, well,
Add it to the list.
Yeah, add it to the list. On a side note, I got really bothered by some people at the end, like, oh, I can't believe they didn't show us who wins the fight. That's bullshit.
No,
I'm like,
you can't show it.
Like, that's awesome. I was like, they can't show it because you're going to piss half your fans off either
Right.
way. Mm-hmm. So you leave it to your imagination. Who's going to win? It's perfect.
Right. They could have shown a little bit of the fight, I think. That would have been fun, but no, you don't see the end. You cannot
this is the
see
exact same way. The reason I brought up the Rocky 3 thing is it's the exact same way that Rocky 3 ends. You've got Apollo and Rocky that they've had this whole movie together and they're joking around and they're about to have a fight just for fun to see who would actually win. Mm-hmm. And the camera freezes at the very end, right when they're about to punch each other, and the end credits start.
Yeah.
It's a pure Rocky 3 homage, and I loved it. I thought it was great.
It worked.
It definitely worked. I know my son said that to me too. He was like, he came up because he watched it before I had a chance to, and he's like, I hated the ending. And after I saw it,
and you were like, spoilers, dude.
Well, yeah. He was like, no, that's all I'm going to say. It was just for me. I didn't like it. He knows better. I've trained him better than that.
Okay, good.
No, so after I watched that, I went up to him. I'm like, so you just didn't like the fact that they didn't show you? Yeah, I want to know who would win. So I had to sit him down and, re-educate him again. And
these are important life lessons for him to learn.
They are.
Indeed.
All right, so what have we learned this week?
The Arrow's a douche.
I learned that if Oliver tells you that he's going to shoot you with an arrow, he's going to fucking shoot you with an arrow.
It's okay. You heal quick.
It's hard to tell when he's joking.
And I've learned that a cold gun would come in real handy sometimes. This has been Crimson Comet Episode 9. Join us next week when Lobster and Rum Daddy will be back to discuss The Flash Season 1, Episode 9, The Man in the Yellow Suit. Until then, I'm Haley.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Jay.
Bye. Thanks for listening. If you want to leave us feedback, you can find all of our contact information at crimsoncometpodcast.com. Find us on Twitter at Crimson Podcast or Facebook at facebook.com/Crimson Comet Podcast. Leave us a voicemail at 423-FLASH53. That's 423-352-7453. The opinions heard on this podcast are those of the individual host and do not represent GonnaGeek. The podcast is not affiliated with DC Comics, Warner Brothers, or the CW. No infringement is intended. The music heard is by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Whoa, shit. My thumb got cut in the handle of the coffee cup, and something terrible just happened.
Oh, God.
Good thing I'm knitting a new keyboard for Christmas.
Oh, no. Well, at least it was on that and not on, your mixer or anything like that.
There's no bird bulb on your router? Oh, maybe there was.
Uh-oh. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Quick, call the other guys. We're just doing one large podcast with all of us. We'll cover both shows. Either that or we just take over their show for a week. It's the Starling Tribune on the Crimson Comet.
Oh,
dear Lord.
Let me text her and make sure everything's all right.
That's just as ominous. Oh, no.
I'm just imagining her sitting there and all of a sudden coffee starts coming out, or smoke starts coming out of her keyboard. I asked if everything was okay, and she said, I'm not sure.
Ominous.
So that happened.
Okay, yay.
She's back. Maybe.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Everything's fine. We're all fine here now. How are you?
So what exactly happened?
Okay, so I go to, wipe up the coffee from the keyboard. So, the buttons don't get all stuck and shit. Mm-hmm. And I accidentally hit the sleep button.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, that makes sense.
Yep. And then it didn't want to wake up.
It wanted a nap.
It hadn't finished its coffee yet.